military deployment in October. So there's an SRO that came from Hopkinton up to Upton, so he is going to be filling in for her while she's gone. I've been an SRO for 6 years, and I've passed up several promotions to stay in the schools because I love what I do. I have my oldest daughter will be 21 next month, and my twins will be 8 in February. Nikki, she was leaving the hospital with her firstborn as we were coming in, and my wife was in labor. Nikki and I, we've known each other for a very long time, probably since she was a student here. And I was very, very excited to see that she was brought into the district. You're all an amazing asset, but I only know her. But I will get to know you as an asset as well. All right, so this is the ALICE program. Does anyone know what I'm talking about when I come to ALICE? So in previous districts, you worked with a similar program? Okay. So ALICE is an acronym. It stands for Alert, Counter, or Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, and Evacuate. We're not here to scare you. I don't enjoy talking about this, even though it's my job. But unfortunately, the way things have been progressing, especially since Columbine, that's where we are right now, unfortunately. Our goal is to get a point across. Our goal is not to scare the heck out of you. Other school districts, they're running around with rifles and blanks and all that stuff. We don't do any of that here. When we do have a drill, we use dodgeballs and tennis balls, and to simulate gunfire and stuff like that. It's like, here's a tennis ball, and we tap you on the leg. We can get our point across without scaring the heck out of you. All right, next slide. Or do you have a button you want me to hit? Or?
No.
Okay, all right. All right, next slide. No. All right, so situational awareness. For those of you who don't know what that is we need to be aware of our surroundings at all times. You know, you're walking down an alley at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're like, hey, there's no lights on here. Hey, it's a great idea. Let me go down this alley by myself. That's situational awareness. You getting that butterfly in your stomach, you thinking, hey, this is a bad idea. That's situational awareness. Know about your surroundings. One of my twins, she's like a bull in a china shop. She's like glasses all over the table, and she'll bump them all, and they'll all tip all over the floor. And situational awareness, we're trying to work with that. Next slide. So these are the color codes of awareness. You never want to be in the white or the black. The white means you see that dark alley and you're like, oh, let me check it out. Let me go down that hallway and, just do my thing. The black is, I see that hallway and there's nothing I can do. I can't make a decision. We don't want you at either white or black. We always want you, hopefully, in the yellow-orange area, but never in the white or the black. So we are working with you and bringing all this to your attention. So if something does happen, hopefully not, fingers crossed, that you will be in the yellow-orange area, hopefully never in the red. But if we never had this training and something happened, you would either be in the black, not being able to do anything, and helping your students in the classroom that you're in, who are looking to you for help and guidance. Or in the white section, being like, I don't know, I just heard a loud bang down the hallway, and there's all these students running down the hallway, and I don't know what's going on. Let's just continue with our science lesson. All right, next slide. So like I said, the white is you're completely unprepared and you're oblivious to the environment that you're in. Next slide. So the yellow, like I said, is where you want to be a majority of the time. You want to be relaxed but alert. So like I said earlier, you have a bunch of students running down the hallway, you heard a loud bang. Hey, that's raising a light bulb. That's giving me a weird feeling in my stomach. There's something not right here. But you're aware of that situation. You're aware that, hey, something's not right here. All right. So now that you see those students running down the hallway and you heard a loud bang or something like that, so I'm not colorblind, but there's red and orange next to each other. This to me looks red, maybe an orange tinge. Yeah, but this is actually orange, not red. I don't care what any of you say. Yeah, so this is the students running down the hallway, there's something going on, and when you go from the yellow to the orange, hey, there's something going on here, let me decide to barricade the door. I am, an alert just came over, the rave panic button, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. Or maybe the PA announcement went off and there's something going on. Hey, I need to act right now. There's a bad person in the lobby, and I'm all the way, I don't know what color wing this is, so I don't work here. Let's say this is the blue wing. It's probably not, but all the way in the blue wing, there's somebody in the main lobby. Oh crap, I'm really far away from that. I need to get out of here. That is you in the orange. That is you making a decision to actively protect yourself, actively protect your students, and do something as opposed to nothing. Next slide. See, this is red. The red is, there is really something going on. It's right outside my room and I need to do something. That is the red. But the difference between red and black is you are still able to gather yourself and be able to do something. The difference between red and black is here you are doing something. The black is I'm frozen. I haven't thought about this for even half a second. I haven't looked at the orientation of my room. I can't barricade my door because my desk and bookcases and everything are all over on the other side of the room. I haven't thought about this for half a second. The red, you have thought about this for half a second. I had to barricade my room, and there is a large bookcase, and I can know that I can gather all my chairs and put it up against the door. Next slide. The black mental physical response is completely null. You can't do anything. And you're frozen and your students are taking over and they don't know what to do because they're looking for you for guidance. Next slide. Next slide. I'm not sure why this is here. Can you go through the colors? Orange before the red, not the red before the orange. All right, I can go back. No, this is fine. All right, so alert. Like I said, alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Alert is the first. It doesn't have to go in sequential order. You're not like, okay, I went to A, now I need to go to L, then I. No, it could be from A to E if you want, and skipping all the other ones. Alert can be anything. So like I said, students running down the hallway, you hear a loud bang, the rave panic button goes off, which we'll talk about in 1 second. Or there's somebody walking around outside of your school and you're like, hey, that's kind of sketchy. I don't like the way this is looking. That could be your alert. So when it comes to, before we get to the rave and the raptor, it's here, eyesight, smell. So smell, it could be, hey, I smell smoke in the building. There's something going on, I need to do something. Or you smell something. Feeling is another thing, like you touch a door handle and it's hot, there's clearly something going on. Taste, I'm still at a loss for taste. All right, so when it comes to the rave panic button, so what that is all staff members, if you choose, is able to get it onto their phone. So it's a rave panic button here. So there's, I don't mention him or her as a gunman, or I look at it as all-encompassing. The obvious is, like Columbine, the two individuals running around in a trench coat and a couple of rifles. We need to get out of that mindset. 2 shooters or 2 active assailants at the same time is like a 2% chance. It almost never happens. Through statistics, throughout the last 30 years, it's probably about 2% where there's more than 1 shooter. But the thing is we have to think about, hey, dad just left probate court, found out that he's losing custody of his 4 kids. He's coming in here and he wants his kids. Or there's a senior here who's trying to get into a D1 baseball program. He just failed science and he's coming in because you failed him in science. So that's why we need to get out of that mindset of the person running around with the rifle. We need to think outside the box. A few years ago, we had an instance where there was a student, and this is several years ago, it's nothing recent, nobody's in the district anymore, including the teacher. There was an issue between an art teacher and a student, and the student came in like 20 minutes before class, or 20 minutes before everyone came into the building, and he was waiting in the art classroom for the teacher. That's what we need to think about. very, very rare, no matter what the news tells you, that there are people breaking into schools every day, running around with rifles and harming kids. That's what gets the big news. That's what pushes it out there. But it's actually more common to happen in a place of worship, a business, a commercial business, or a mall or a restaurant or something like that. So I don't want to minimize it, but it is very, very rare. So to get to the rate panic button, you come into the app. There's fire, medical, police, and other. You hit one of these buttons for 1.5 seconds. It's like a clock. The whole screen goes gray, and it works its way. Well, I'm behind you, so it would work its way this way. And then once that the screen is back to full color, it will notify everybody on campus through email, text message, snail mail, or not snail mail, email, text message, email notification, and push notification. So, not to be a nerd, but I don't know. So this whole campus here, there's an invisible geocode around it in a computer system. So if you notify this alarm here, it will notify everybody on campus. But let's say you're out at, 110 Grill or something like that, and somebody's like choking on a chicken wing, you can still utilize that app, and it will not notify everybody because you're not on campus. So it is still it's an intuitive program. It works really well. We put a lot of research into it, and it's a fantastic program.
And it contacts you guys too?
Yes.
Okay.
So all the officers on both departments, they have access to that. So when an alarm goes off, they're immediately notified. If I'm not in the building, I know I need to come from the other building to come here. That's another thing about Kara and I. We're not SROs to be like, hey, we're an SRO. We're going to be in the building an hour a week or an hour a month. Not going to mention other towns, but that's their consideration of an SRO. We as SROs, we are 100% dedicated to the schools. We are in the schools Monday through Friday. They don't really want us taking any time off during the school year because they want us in the schools. And it allows us to build a partnership with the students, partnership with the teachers. Because when I initially came in 6 years ago, there was a little bit of apprehension because I was the first full-time SRO, and like, what's that guy doing? And when I initially started rolling out the Alice program, they're like, I definitely don't want that guy here. But most people were on board, but it was just about, hey, are they running around with rifles and blanks and stuff like that? And once I rolled it out, they're like, I'm not going to that training. And then they found out how I rolled out the training. They were like, okay, I can do that. When are you doing it again? So I'm very cognizant when it comes to mental health and how we're looking at everything. So I try to look at it from every different perspective, Kara and I, to make things as soft as possible. After we had the students on board, or after we had the staff on board, we rolled it out to students or parents on parent nights. Even though like 11 people showed up throughout the district, we still tried. And then, prior to COVID, we rolled it out to students. With that mental health mindset in mind, it worked out really well. We only had maybe 2 or 3 students throughout MISCO, and maybe 1 or 2 throughout Clough. I can't speak for over here. But it worked out really well.
Does it just send a blank notification, or do you put in something like fire or shooter or
Nope.
chicken?
So you would actually, which is not uncommon around because, especially in Mendon, because we have some animals get loose from the zoo. You're like, what animal got loose? You want me to do what? So active assailant or fire, that goes out to everybody. When it comes to a medical, police, or other, that would only go out to select admin staff.
Okay.
So
is this an app that we have access to now and can download, or?
yes, so if you reach out to me or myself or Kara with your school email address and your mobile phone, because it will not work on an iPad, it won't work on your home phone, it won't work, it only works on your mobile phone. You reach out to us with your school email address and your mobile phone number, we can import your information into the database, and then you just download the application. We'll send out an email, brief video about what it is and how to work it and how to use it. But Kara and I are always here, so if you need to reach out to either one of us, we can help you out with that.
And how about if we do this just to facilitate it? We've got a list for you guys. We have all your emails. We'll
That would be
circulate
perfect.
it after this. And if you don't want this,
Yeah.
right, then just like put a little X in the column next to it, and that's fine. Otherwise, we'll set everyone up.
That's great.
I'm new to the area. Is this just a local Upton Mendon thing, or is this anywhere in Massachusetts?
It's something that the police departments provide for the school system.
Just here.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Other schools, they may have, there's several different applications that can essentially do the same thing, but this is just something that we thought was best for us. So if you do want to do that, just let us know. When it comes to the Raptor system, so if you visited the school prior to being an employee, you would have to drop your license into a little box. That box that scanner would initially run your license through the sexual offender registry throughout the continental United States. But the nice thing about that is not only does it run the sex offender registry, but we can also put customized alerts. At MISCO, there's between 700 and 800 students at all times. And it's difficult to remember, hey, this person's situation versus this person's situation. If there's an active restraining order, probate order, no contact order, anything like that, we can put customized alerts in that system. So they drop the license in there, it sends red flags to admin staff and to myself or Kara, depending on which school you're in. And we're going to know that, hey, this person's not supposed to be on property, we need to take action and do something about it. Because when I came into the building 6 years ago, MISCO only had 2 or 3 cameras, and they looked like Super Mario back in the 1990s. It was like 2 pixels for Sam, and there wasn't too much going on. So now over at MISCO, we were able to get a grant, and there's 53 cameras over there now. We're able to access them on laptops. I can access them through my phone. It's super helpful. But this is 2 other programs that we didn't have before that we were able to incorporate into our security and strategic plan. Next slide. All right. So information. What information is provided to you? So is it real-time information, such as loud bangs, students running down a hallway, somebody yelling that there's a bad person in the building or something like that. We don't use code words. Speak English. Say something. That was one of the biggest things with law enforcement is, all towns around us would be using different codes and all that stuff, and then you would have a mass incident, and nobody could speak to each other because they're all speaking essentially different coded language. So the feds, especially after 9/11, got rid of that because nobody could talk to each other. So just if you have access to the PA and you see something, you can notify everybody through the Rave Panic button, or just go over the PA and say, "This is what I'm seeing. This is what's happening." That's the best chance of survival for everybody if they actually know what's going on. Because I go into stores sometimes and they're like, "Oh, code blue, code yellow," and I'm like, what if there's somebody from another store and they don't know what code blue or code yellow is? Also at the schools, we put up signs, hey, the 100 hallways this way, or the rooms 220 through this are over here. Because we have to think, we have a mass incident, we have a bunch of different law enforcement first responders coming, they barely know where the building is, never mind where the library is. So we have to think like that. So don't use code words, use plain language. Use the information that you have to make your decision. Because before, when I started about 6 years ago, the traditional response to something like this was traditional lockdown. You're in here in this PDC, and your goal was to hide under a table, hide behind a shelf, and do nothing. Whether the person was right here in this room or way on the other side of the building. Use that information. Throw all the eggs in your basket. Know that you have responses and you can do actions as opposed to nothing. I have a longer presentation when it comes to a lot of this, and we can get into that if you want to do it one-on-one or as a group. But so evacuate. If there's a bad person in the lobby, you're on the other side of the building, you can get out of the building, get out of the building. Evacuation is the preferred response. If you're in the main lobby and that bad person's in the main lobby, or let's say you're in the main office, if you have the chance to lock down, because that may be your best option. Or there's multiple options. Things are progressing. The bad person's moving down the hallway. Your initial alert was, hey, they're in the main lobby. Now, hey, they're coming up the stairs. That's going to alter your response. So use the information that you have. The one thing I don't like about the Rave Panic button, and I understand why they did it, is that the only way for you to push out information is to reactivate another alarm. It's not like a continuous text message where you're like, hey, bad person's coming up the main stairs or whatever. And they do that on purpose because they don't want 150 staff members all texting at the same time. The pertinent information's, 20 text messages up here. They do that on purpose. And this program is really good too because it shows you elevation. So if you activate it on the second floor, we're going to know it's on the second floor. And we don't have like one big geofence around the property. There's several geofences. So if they activate it in one of those areas, we know to go specifically to that area. Because initially I just did all of Misco. And then an alarm would go off and I'd be like, well, this is no help. This is all of Misco. So I broke Misco into about 15, I think it was 15 or 17 sections. So if an alarm goes off in one of those sections, I can narrow it down to one of those sections. In this building and Memorial is the same way. So if you're not able to use the application, use the PA, use your big boy or big girl voice, and get that information out there as soon as you can. Because the more information people have, the more likely that the survival rate is more likely. Next slide. Sending the information, you want to give as much information as you can. You want to be able to, where's that bad person going? What are they wearing? What are they holding? What are they, do you only see them with a weapon? Or do you see them with multiple weapons? It's good to know all of this stuff because all of this information is also coming to us. And we'll get in, I think it's in this presentation, but never, if the weapon falls down or never hold the weapon, just put a trash barrel over it and sit over it. Because officers, they're looking for a person with a weapon. And officers, high adrenaline are coming in, they see that weapon, we're going to assume that you're the bad person. So that's why it's important never to pick up a weapon because you may be confused with an innocent person doing the right thing, may be confused with a bad person doing a bad thing. So never pick up that weapon. Put it under a trash barrel, let us know where it is. So after you activate the alarm, it's going to go out to everybody, and then a green box will show up at the bottom of the screen. I can't do it because it will activate an alarm. And then it will allow you to say, call 911. So here in Upton, at the second that alarm goes off, dispatchers also receive that alarm, along with all their officers. Mendon, we have a regional dispatch center. It's actually down in Norfolk. So when we switched softwares going to the regional dispatch center, we lost the capability of having dispatch know when an alarm goes off. But all the officers are receiving that alarm anyway, so it's incumbent upon the officers to, when they get an alarm, notify dispatch, and then they can relay it that way. So there's multiple different facets to this program. But this isn't the be-all, end-all. If you can't access this alarm, notify anyone any way you can. Get that information out there. Next slide. Evacuation. Evacuation is the preferred response. If you can get out, get out. So in Columbine, their training, you can't fault anybody, was traditional lockdown. So 4 minutes and 10 seconds, people in the library, there's about 53 or 54 people in the library. 4 minutes and 10 seconds. I'll emphasize that because during my other presentation, I actually set an alarm for 4 minutes and 10 seconds. 4 minutes and 10 seconds later, the two bad guys come into the library, and there's still 53 or 54 people in there. Mind you, there was a door at the back of the library, and then if they walked through that room, there was an exterior door there they could have evacuated. So they had 4 minutes and 10 seconds to get out of that building. But they were relying on their training. So when the bad guys came in 4 minutes and 10 seconds later, there was still 53 or 54 people in there, and then it was catastrophe. Not going to get into graphic details, but things have evolved since then when it comes to first responder response. That's why the rates were so high, especially at Sandy Hook, because their preferred response was to put all their students in a closet. Bad person found a closet, and that's why numbers were so high. Like I said, this is difficult for me to talk about, but I am incredibly passionate about this topic. So after my first student training with the staff members, there was a teacher over at Clough. Her husband was in the military. She was visiting down in DC shortly after this presentation. She was at a mall eating with her family and her husband, and she heard loud bangs. She heard gunshots in the mall. She said because she went to this training and she knew that she had several eggs in her basket, she knew what to do. She evacuated the restaurant, she got out of the mall, and if the bad person ever came into the restaurant, she wouldn't have been there with her family. She said if it wasn't for this training, she would have fell into that I have no eggs in my basket and hid under her table and prayed to baby Jesus the bad person didn't come into the restaurant. Next slide. So like I said, evacuate could be anything. It could be running out an emergency door. It could be breaking a window in your classroom and just evacuating out of the building that way. It could just be running down the hall to a safer location. As long as you're doing something, as opposed to nothing. Next slide. Lockdown, sometimes that's your only response. Especially in the younger groups, like if you work at Clough or Memorial, and you have a bunch of preschool or even anyone under second grade, it's very difficult to evacuate. It's very difficult to do a lot of this stuff. But when I say lockdown, it's not what they did 15, 20 years ago where they're just like, all right, we'll shut the door, turn off the lights, and hopefully the bad person doesn't come in here. I look at it as like lockdown plus. All right, let's at least lock your door. Always keep your door handle locked. You can keep your door open, depending on what your guidance is from your school. At Misco and Clough, I have magnets. It's like little wands that you pick up those little circle things. Well, some of you are probably way too young to know what those are. But I have them lock their door handle, and there's the door jamb here, and they put the long magnet wand there. So if something bad happens, they just pull the magnet wand, shut their door, and their door's locked. And then they can decide what they're going to do. Are they going to evacuate? Are they going to break a window? Are they going to be able to do something? Some buildings, I think Memorial, they still have all the doors locked all the time, classroom doors. But that was my way of slowly breaking it out to everybody because they're like, you're going to make this a prison? What the heck are you doing? Sometimes safety is uncomfortable. Sometimes safety is inconvenient. But the thing is we need to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe the best we can. Next slide. All right, so you need to look at your door. When it comes to lockdown, lock your door, okay, if I ever have to lock down this room, does my door open out? Does it open into the classroom? We have to look at that because if it opens out and you barricade, the bad person can push it down. But we have to remember what that bad person's in there to do. They're a bunch of narcissists. They just say, hey, I want to be like that guy, but I want to have 2 more victims than that guy. Their goal is to create as much chaos as they can. Go ahead.
So at Memorial, if there
Yep.
are the doors that connect to the other classrooms, would you recommend locking those doors
Yes.
as well, because those don't lock?
Because let's say you have 10 classrooms. 9 of those classrooms are locked,
Right.
but that one classroom's open, they all might as well be
Go
wide
through.
open. So this has always been an argument between fire marshals and law
Yeah.
enforcement
Yeah.
because we're like, hey, we need to lock that door, and they're like, no, it
Fire
violates
hazard.
fire code.
Yeah.
The Mendon chief, he understands the gray area, he understands what's going on. He won't allow us to lock the doors, but he is very much okay with us doing more than we have to.
I feel wedge it, right? Like a
Yeah,
doorway
absolutely.
wouldn't
Even
stop
just, this is all something we can talk sidebar because I don't want to hold you all here. But if even a clipboard stuffing under a door, that will hold a lot of doors shut, especially if there's a rug on the floor like in this one. Something as simple as that. If you have one of those hinges there on the door, fire departments have these little fire hoses. They cut the fire hoses, they slide it over that. There's no way you can open that door with that fire hose over that door. But look at your room. Say, all right, if I had to barricade this door right now, am I able to? Let me put a bookshelf next to the door so I could slide it up against the door. So I can focus more on my kids than shutting that door. When you get back to your buildings, just go on a scavenger hunt. Find an exit you never even knew was there because we're all a creature of habit. All right, I go to work at 8:15 every day and I count 11 steps into the building and then I go 24 steps into my classroom and I do another 17 steps to get my coffee and then another 17 back. Get outside your comfort zone because this will never happen. Hopefully it never happens, but this will never happen at the convenient time when you're in your classroom. We have to think, hey, we're in a time of transition. Kids are coming in from recess. We have to think outside that. Hey, you just left a meeting across the building. You need to know how to get out from there. So go on a scavenger hunt, find an exit you never knew was there. Next slide. Samuel, get it together. Well, like I said, look at your doors. Do they open out? Do they open in? Is there a bunch of glass next to your door? Are they like Misco? They're the older buildings, like there's glass and there's those metal wires through it. Projectiles can go through there, but actually somebody getting through that window is next to impossible. But if you have this really nice solid door like this, but a huge window like this next to it, it's something we need to look into. Hey, this is Tara.
A little late, but I made it.
Next slide. All right, so when it comes to
Is it your
You're
turn?
doing great, so you keep going with whatever you're
So when
doing.
it comes to controlling your room, we don't teach the C in the acronym is counter. We don't teach elementary school grade children that. Even some students in the middle school, I would say anything over probably like 7th grade, we can teach counter. Anything under that, I wouldn't recommend it. So what counter is that bad, you're all here, you're having a class, and the bad person comes in here. Your sole focus is like, oh crap, I can't lock down, I can't evacuate, the bad person's here. But yet I have 50 chairs over here. And that person, the way I describe it is, you're driving down the road. This is something that everyone can understand. You're driving down the road, you see a stop sign. You observe the stop sign, you need to orient yourself. Hey, it's 100 yards up the road, I need to start applying my brakes. Okay, all of a sudden, Twilight Zone comes out and they hit pause on everything freezes. The pause comes out and it's like, holy cow, the stop sign's now 2 miles up the road. You start back at orient. And you need to, so when the bad person comes into the building, you always want that person to stay at orient. You never want that person to, be able to decide and actually do something. So they can't get anything outside of orient if there's 50 chairs and books and staplers and everything being thrown at them. So that's what counter is. But we don't teach anything under probably like 6th grade under. We don't do that. So next slide. So this is counter. Next slide. Next slide.
Next slide.
No, just tap the button because I think this may be the animation. Yeah. Just keep going. Yeah, I know we're running short on time, so we've covered all of this. Next slide. All right, so this is what I was just talking about. So it's called the OODA loop process. It was created by a general in the Air Force. So we always want to keep the bad person at observe. So the OODA loop process is observe, orient, decide, and act. You never want that bad person to get to act. And if they have like constant stuff being thrown at them, they can't ever get past observe because there's people moving all over the place. There's stuff flying at them. They can't get to decide or act because they don't even have anything because they're too distracted. We want to keep them distracted because the less they're distracted, the more they're there to create their initial goal is to create chaos. And that buys all of you time until we get there because we're not like Uvalde, Texas, where we're just going to stand around the building, twiddling our thumbs and wait an hour and a half for a SWAT team to come. We are trained to go in by ourselves. We're not going to wait around. We're going to get there. As soon as we get there, we're going in by ourselves. So we just want to make that, we wanted to emphasize that too because we don't want you to think, hey, you're alone here. But a lot of these incidences happen within 2 or 3 minutes. So a lot of times by the time a lot of law enforcement gets there, the situation's done. So that's why we want to train you and have you all informed because essentially you're the first responder when it comes to situations like this because by the time we get there, it's done. So we always want to keep that person at observe. Next slide. So this is what I was talking about with the stop sign, but they're using the green light here. Next slide. Oh, here it comes. Next slide. Oh, there's the Girl Scouts. I think there's 2 more slides. Next slide.
Oh.
So I'm not going to do this here because we're running short on time, but the whole thing is we would have somebody hold their finger and try to, follow the dots. If the dot is static, it's easy to follow the dot because you can go like this and follow the dot. But if it's dynamic, things are moving, coming from every different direction, it's next to impossible to even count those dots, never mind keep your finger on those dots. So we're just trying to emphasize the observe and the orient, or the OODA loop process. Next slide.
Who's gonna follow the dots?
So control, again, this is something we would only probably do in the high school environment. The bad person comes in, it's essentially like a big pig pile. People grabbing all different limbs and trying to secure that person the best they can until first responders get there. This is not something I would be doing in the middle school or the elementary schools. So during our training, typically we would be doing like a debriefing. All right, we did all this staff training, we did all this live action scenarios, and then as we're debriefing, like questions and stuff like that, we would be like, we would strategically place somebody in that audience, and they would just stand up and start yelling. And if they were following the training, they would know, hey, we need to pig pile this person so this person can't create chaos and hurt people. And it's funny because we go through a lot of these training scenarios. I did one in Sutton several years ago, and we went through all these scenarios, and people are like, yes, I feel empowered, I have all my eggs in my basket. And then we had a person come up with like, it's in the form of a firearm, but it's blue, and it's like a paperweight, it's just solid rubber. And they start knocking on the windows with this blue rubber, and like half the people just like fell down, hid under a table, and I'm like, weren't you listening to what we just did for the last 2 hours? I'm like, come on. But it's natural instinct, it takes time. Next slide. Like I said, we need to don't pick up that bad object, try to put it under a trash barrel and control that trash barrel. Next slide. And that's it. So we're here as long as you want us to be here. I don't want to hold you up any longer because I know that you all have to go to different buildings and do different things, and I don't want to mess up your schedule too much. If we could, if you want, share with Kara or whichever building you're in, one of us or both of us, doesn't matter, your school email address and your mobile phone number. And then we can import you into the rave panic button.
We'll help set that up.
Okay.
We have all that stuff, okay? And can please join me in thanking all
Yay.
We appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, for starting our day. We're videotaping, right? So it'll be there for your reference on our website ultimately, as hopefully will the slide deck if you ever needed to reference it. I want to wish you all a wonderful day. It looks like we've hit the jackpot with the weather